Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello students, this is Professor Ravin Zugade from Department of Chemistry, Rashtrasanta Tukadoji Maharaj, Nagpur University, and we were discussing about transition elements with special reference to the properties of 3D series elements. In the previous lectures, we have discussed various properties of the 3D series elements like position in periodic table, electronic configuration, atomic and ionic radii, ionization potentials, variable oxidation states, like that. In this particular lecture, we will be discussing about colors of the compounds and ions of 3D series elements and their magnetic properties. So this will be our discussion in this particular lecture. So now let us focus on these two topics, starting with the colors of various compounds and ions of 3D series elements. Now, why a particular compound appears colored or why a particular compound appears colorless, or any substance, why does it look colored or why does it look colorless or white? The reason has been explained by a theory called as a complementary color theory. It says that if any compound or any substance absorbs in the visible region of the spectrum, then it will appear colored, and the color which is appeared will be the complementary color which is absorbed by that substance. If we see, there are two diagrams shown over here. There is one wheel on left hand side. The opposite colors which are there, they are complementary of each other, whereas on right side there are some colors shown which are complementary to each other. For example, this red color is complementary to green, this violet color is complementary to yellow. Now what is this complementary color and why the substances appear colored? Now we know that the visible region of the spectrum, it extends from about 400 nanometer to 750 nanometer. Now in this region, if the absorption takes place, then a particular wavelength among these 7 colors is absorbed by the substance, and as a result its complementary color will appear in the appearance. For example, if a substance absorbs in the red region of the spectrum, then it will appear green. If a substance absorbs in the violet region of the spectrum, it will appear yellow. If it absorbs in the blue region of the spectrum, it will appear orange, and so on. This is what is called as a complementary color theory. Now why at all a substance will absorb? Any substance will absorb to undergo transition. Now in a molecule, there are 3 types of energy levels called as the rotational energy levels, vibrational energy levels, and electronic energy levels. And according to quantum mechanics, all the 3 energy levels are quantized, meaning that they are discrete in nature. So there is always an energy gap between any 2 energy levels. So a molecule can remain in this level or in the higher level. It cannot have any energy in between. Now these rotational energy levels are closely spaced, because if a molecule has to undergo rotational transition, the amount of energy required for this transition is very small. As a result, the rotational energy levels are very closely spaced, and if a molecule undergoes a rotational transition, then it will absorb in the microwave region of the spectrum. Similarly, if a molecule undergoes vibrational transition from one vibrational level to another vibrational level, then the energy required is slightly higher, and as a result, the absorption takes place in the IR region or infrared region of the spectrum. Whereas if a molecule undergoes electronic transition from one electronic state to another electronic state by transfer of electron from ground state electronic level to some excited state electronic level, then this transition requires highest energy, and as a result, the absorption will take place in the UV or visible region. Now this ultraviolet region is below 400 nanometer and visible region is above 400 nanometer. Now whether the transition is occurring in the UV region or visible region, that will govern if the compound will be colored or it will be colorless. If the absorption takes place in the ultraviolet region, the compound will be colorless, and if it absorbs in the visible region of the spectrum, it will be colored. It's quite simple. Now if in what case it will absorb in the UV region and in what case it will absorb in the visible region, since visible region is having longer wavelength, it is having lower energy. UV region is in the lower wavelength region, and as a result it has got higher energy. It means that if the energy gap between the ground state and excited state is large, then the energy required for transition will be high. As a result, the absorption will take place in the UV region and the compound will appear colorless. On the other hand, if the energy gap between the ground state and excited state is small, then the energy required for transition is small. As a result, the absorption will take place in the visible region of the spectrum. It means that in order to have color, the compound should undergo electronic transition. Secondly, the energy gap between the ground state and excited state should be small, so that absorption should take place in the visible region, and the color which is absorbed will be exactly what is called as the complementary color of the substance which is observed by the person who is observing it. Okay. Now if this is the case, then what will happen if a compound belongs to a metal or non-metal in the S block or P block elements? Take an example. We have seen these compounds: sodium chloride, calcium chloride, potassium bromide. You will find that all of them are colorless in nature or white in color. The reason for this white region color is because of the UV region absorption. Now why they absorb in the UV region? The reason is quite obvious, that the energy gap between the ground state and excited state is large. Because if you have a S block element or P block element, the S electron has to excite to next P level, or P electron has to excite to next D level. So there is a transition from S to P or P to D, and this transition requires larger energy, and since it requires larger energy, it will be absorption in the UV region of the spectrum, and since the absorption takes place in the UV region, it means that the compound will appear colorless. Why S and P block elements normally form colorless compounds? Coming to the D block elements. Now you must have observed the compounds of D block element. You must have seen copper sulfate. Now, copper sulfate is distinct blue in color. Nickel chloride, it is green in color. Manganese chloride, it is faint pink in color. Cobalt chloride, it is distinct pink in color. The reason for this is again the same. The energy required for transition should lie in the visible region of the spectrum. It means that there is a small energy gap between ground state and excited state of the electrons. This is a chart which shows the colors of various hydrated ions of D block elements. If you see this, scandium 3 plus, titanium 4 plus, they are colorless. But if you see titanium 3 positive, it is having reddish violet color. Vanadium 3 positive, the hydrated ion is green in color. Chromium 3 positive, green in color. Up to copper 2 plus. Now from D1 to D9 system, all of them are showing colors in the hydrated ions. Whereas D0 and D10, they are showing colorless hydrated ions. So these are the observations we can make in contrast to S and P block elements. So you will find most of the compounds as well as hydrated ions of these D block elements or 3D series elements are colored in nature in contrast to alkali and alkaline earth metals. The metals which are having D1 to D9 configuration are colored, but those having D0 and D10 configuration are colorless. It means that these D electrons have something to do with the color of the compound. Now what that something to do, we'll try to explain on the basis of some theory. The theory which can best explain the color of the complexes or color of the compounds or color of the hydrated ions of the D block elements is the crystal field theory. This theory says that in the presence of ligand or in the presence of oppositely charged ions or in the presence of water molecule in the form of hydration, the 5 d orbitals which are normally degenerate in the isolated metal ion, these 5 degenerate d orbitals, they split into 2 or more groups depending on the nature of the geometry under which it is getting hydrated. So there is a lifting of degeneracy. This is called as the lifting of degeneracy of the 5 d orbitals. Secondly, if there is electron in the lower d orbital and vacancy in the higher d orbital, then electronic excitation is possible, and this is called as the d-d transition. Clearly that if there is electron in the lower orbital, then it has a tendency to absorb radiation and get transferred to higher energy level. This transition is called as the d-d transition, and the energy required for this d-d transition lies in the visible region of the spectrum, because the energy gap between these d energy levels after crystal field splitting is very small, and so absorption takes place in the visible region of the spectrum. Now there are two conditions for this. There should be electron in the lower d orbital and there should be vacancy in the higher d orbital. We will explain both of these conditions with examples. Consider the example of titanium in two different oxidation states, titanium 4 positive and titanium 3 positive. Now titanium 4 positive is a D0 system, whereas titanium 3 positive is a D1 system. Now in the presence of water ligands or in case of hydrated ions, they undergo crystal field splitting. Now Ti3 positive being a D1 system, it has a tendency to undergo DD transition, whereas Ti4 positive is a D0 system and hence DD transition is not possible. As a result, Ti3 positive can undergo DD transition and appears colored. It has violet color in the hydrated ion form. The second condition is there should be vacancy in the higher d orbital. We will take an example for this. Now take example of copper. Copper having electronic configuration 3d10 4s1. Copper forms two types of ions, Cu positive and Cu2 positive. In case of Cu positive, this 4s1 electron is lost and it is having D10 configuration, whereas Cu2 positive, one electron from 4s and one electron from 3d is lost and it is having 3d9 configuration. Now if it undergoes hydration, there will be crystal field splitting. But in case of D10 system, even if there are electrons in the lower d orbitals, there is no vacancy in the higher d orbital, and so DD transition is not possible. Hence, Cu positive will be colorless. On the other hand, Cu2 plus is having d electrons in the lower orbitals, whereas there is one vacancy in the higher d orbital, and hence DD transition is possible and it can absorb the radiation coming from in the visible region, and as a result it will be colored in nature. So Cu2 positive is colored and Cu positive is colorless. Coming to another property of these D block elements or 3D series elements, that is the magnetic properties. The magnetic properties are mainly of different types. Among them, we will be discussing three important types over here. The first type of magnetic property is called as the diamagnetism. What is diamagnetism? If we place any compound in the magnetic field or any substance in the magnetic field, then the intensity of magnetic field is reduced in this particular region as compared to vacuum. This reduction in the intensity of magnetic field is called as diamagnetism. Now such compound will repel the magnetic lines of forces, and as a result these magnetic lines of forces will try to pass through outside of this compound and it will try to avoid passing through this compound. As a result, if we place such compound in the magnet in the hanging position, it will align perpendicular to the magnetic field. The magnetic field is in this direction, whereas the compound or the substance is aligning itself perpendicular away from the magnetic field. So, why this type of behavior is shown by such compounds? The reason lies in the fact that such compounds have all the electrons which are paired and there is no unpaired electron. So, if there is no unpaired electron, the compound will be diamagnetic in nature. And the magnetic field produced by one electron or every electron is cancelled by equal and opposite field which is produced by the paired electron. In such case, the magnetic susceptibility chi is negative and it is also independent of temperature. And the magnetic moment is zero because there is no unpaired electron. Coming to the second magnetic property, it is called as a paramagnetism. Now it is opposite to what is called as a diamagnetism. In such case, if you place a compound in the magnetic field, then the magnetic lines of force will prefer to pass through this substance as compared to vacuum. As a result, the intensity of magnetic field is higher through the compound as compared to vacuum. If we put such material in the hanging position in the magnetic field, it will align itself parallel to the magnetic field and not perpendicular. The reason for this type of behavior is presence of unpaired electron. So if a substance has unpaired electron or if a material has unpaired electrons, it will show paramagnetic type of behavior and it will get attracted towards the magnetic field. In such case, magnetic moment is non-zero and magnetic susceptibility chi is also positive, and also the value of this chi or magnetic susceptibility goes on decreasing with temperature. The third type of behavior shown by the compounds is ferromagnetism. Now what is this ferromagnetism? It can be considered as a limiting case of paramagnetism or extreme paramagnetism. When there are large number of unpaired electrons in a molecule or in a compound and the electrons are having parallel spins, then such type of ferromagnetic behavior is shown. Now this type of material definitely contains the parallelly aligned electrons in small regions. Now if we consider this particular region, all the electrons in this region are aligned in one direction. All the electrons in this particular region are aligning in one direction. Now these small regions are called as the domains of electrons, and in each domain the electrons are aligned parallel to each other, and in the absence of any magnetic field these domains are randomly oriented, so net magnetization is zero. But if we apply magnetic field, all the domains immediately rotate in the direction of the magnetic field, and as a result they have a tendency to show very strong paramagnetism, and it is defined as what is called as diamagnetism in the presence of external magnetic field. This is called as ferromagnetic type of behavior, not diamagnetic but ferromagnetic type of behavior. Magnetic susceptibility is again positive, large positive value, and magnetic moment is again non-zero, large positive value. Now what is this magnetic moment? We know that when any material is placed in external magnetic field, the electrons will try to align themselves in the direction of magnetic field, because we know that every electron behaves as a bar magnet. This electron is having two types of motions. One is an orbital motion and second is a spin motion. So if we apply magnetic field to this electron, it can align in the direction of magnetic field in two ways. One way is by adopting the spin motion in the direction of magnetic field. Now let us see how it aligns its spin motion in the direction of magnetic field. Consider any electron spinning in a particular direction. We know that it behaves as a bar magnet with magnetic moment directed in this particular direction. Now in the absence of magnetic field, these type of bar magnets are randomly oriented. But when we apply magnetic field in a particular direction, this electron will start spinning in such a way that the magnetic moment vector is aligned parallel to the applied magnetic field. This is how the electron adopts spin motion in the direction of applied magnetic field. Similarly, it can adopt orbital motion in the direction of applied magnetic field. We will see this how it gets or adopts the orbital motion also. Consider there is an electron present in dxy orbital. Now this dxy orbital is in the xy plane and there is no z component to this orbital. Now if we apply magnetic field along z direction, then this dxy orbital orients itself in such a way that it gets a z component, like by rotating through 90 degrees, this dxy orbital gets oriented in dyz plane. As a result, now this orbital has a z component in it. So now the orbital contribution to the magnetic moment will be there, because now it has got a z component or a component of orbital motion along z direction. This is how the orbital contribution to magnetic moment is there. So there are two contributions, spin contribution and orbital contribution. The total magnetic moment is resultant of the two motions, and that is given by mu s plus L, that is spin plus azimuthal, which is orbital, is equal to under root of 4s into s plus 1 plus L into L plus 1. This is the formula which is used for calculating the magnetic moment if there is contribution from spin as well as orbital motion, or in some cases there is spin orbit coupling, and if it is spin orbit coupling, the resultant or effective magnetic moment is given by mu j, which is equal to g into under root of J into J plus 1 Bohr magneton, where G is called as the Lande splitting factor. Now, in case of 3D series elements, the orbital motion is completely quenched. Let us try to understand what is quenching of orbital motion. In case of 3D series elements, the 4s electrons are already lost while forming any compound or while forming any complex. It means that the outermost electron are the 3D electrons. And when the ligands approach the metal ion, they are directly coming very close to the 3D electrons. Thence there is a very strong interaction between the 3D orbitals and the ligand electrons. As a result, the rotation of the orbital, as we have seen, dxy getting transformed into dyz is not possible because of very strong interaction between the d orbital of metal and the overlapping orbital of ligand. Hence, the orbital motion is completely prevented, or we call as the quenching of the orbital motion. And since the orbital motion is quenched, then this contribution from the orbital factor becomes 0. So L into L plus 1 will be 0. As a result, the spin only magnetic moment is given by under root of 4s into s plus 1. And we know that each electron has a spin quantum number 1 by 2. So if there are n number of unpaired electrons, then total spin quantum number capital S will be equal to n by 2. Putting this value of n by 2, what we get is the spin only magnetic moment is equal to 4 into n upon 2 into n upon 2 plus 1. This comes out to be under root of n into n plus 2 Bohr magneton. This is called as the spin only magnetic moment. Now consider the 3D series elements. If you have titanium 3 positive, which is a D1 system, there is one unpaired electron. Since there is one unpaired electron, n into n plus 2, under root of n into n plus 2 becomes 1.73, which is a calculated magnetic moment, and the observed magnetic moment is very close to it, 1.75. Similarly, vanadium in two different oxidation states. So coming from D1 to D9, all of them have got some calculated value of magnetic moment which are very close to experimental or observed values of magnetic moment. And you will find that all of these are paramagnetic in nature because they are having non-zero magnetic moment and there are number of unpaired electrons. But if it is a D0 system or a D10 system, all the electrons are paired, and as a result the compounds will be diamagnetic in nature. There are three specific cases or special cases of iron, cobalt and nickel. They have a tendency to show ferromagnetism because of domain formation. What is the domain? It is a region in which all the electrons have their spins oriented in a particular direction. Now, in the absence of any external magnetic field, these domains are randomly oriented. And since they are randomly oriented, the net magnetization is 0. But if we apply external magnetic field, in the presence of external magnetic field, the direction of these domains immediately change in the direction of magnetic field, and there is strong magnetization along the direction of magnetic field. Hence, these compounds or these elements, iron, cobalt and nickel, these are the three elements which show ferromagnetism type of phenomena. Such phenomena is also shown by some of the rare earth elements and some of the alloys of these elements. Okay, in order to summarize this, what we have studied in this particular lecture about the colors, that the 3D series elements generally have a tendency to form colored compounds and colored hydrated ions. The colors are due to DD transition in the presence of ligands or in the presence of water molecules in the hydrated ions. and the energy of DD transition corresponds to visible region of the spectrum, and hence the compounds are colored. Among the magnetic properties, we have seen that the nature of magnetic property depends on the number of unpaired electrons. D1 to D9 systems are paramagnetic in nature, D0 and D10 systems are diamagnetic in nature, and most of the D block elements show paramagnetism. Some of them show ferromagnetic property like iron, cobalt and nickel. This is all about in this lecture. The remaining part of 3D series elements will cover in lecture 4. Thank you.